So the next kit I'm going to show you how to put up is the white Ranunculus planter kit and also the white Ranunculus kit. So these two kits are in some beautiful terracotta pots as always. So the planter is in the scalloped planter. It's a 21 centimetre across. It's a really lovely size planter. And then the Ranunculus kit is in this gorgeous ribbed Simona pot and matching saucer. So two gorgeous pots, and then the Ranunculus. I mean, when these arrived from the flower auction, I think I gasped. They're just the most beautiful plants. The petals are so delicate, and they're just layers and layers and layers, and they are just so stunning. And yeah, I really hope you'll really love them as much as I do. I'm going to start with the planter. So you'll have in your kit for the planter your pot and saucer, your gravel, compost, moss, twigs, and your 3 Ranunculus plants. So with your pot, you can add in your gravel once your pot is sat on its saucer. Well, you don't need loads, just a little bit, just to stop the roots sitting in sort of water for too long. And then just add in a sprinkle, not loads, of compost, maybe 2 handfuls, and then sort of flatten it down into the gravel. Okay, and we'll come back to the compost later because we'll use that to fill in the gaps. After you've watered your Ranunculus plants, gently take them out of their plastic pots. And then you can slightly, gently, just loosen the roots at the bottom. Some of them will break off, that's absolutely fine. The root system regrows, it's not a problem. And then you're going to plant them in a sort of triangle shape. So I'll pop this one in, and you want it to sort of be planted at an angle, so that it's not like that, it's more like that. I'll show you from the side. So it's not sort of upright, it's more at an angle. Okay, so popping your first one in at an angle. Now adding your second. It's also worth noting that when your plants arrive, if there are any leaves that look a bit scraggly or just turning a bit sort of paler and looking like they're a bit yellow, you simply remove them. You can just cut them off at the base, making sure you don't cut any new growth that are buds that will become new flowers. So yeah, just take them off just at the base. It just keeps your plants nice and sort of tidy. Okay, so then adding that one in again at a slight angle. So for example, for this one, this leaf here, it just looks a bit off colour. So I mean, you can do it with secateurs, but I'm just going to snap it off near the base. So making sure there are no little buds down there, I'm just going to pinch and take it off just like that. It makes no difference to the plant. It's purely, it just keeps it nice and tidy. So again, just taking off the sort of little straggly leaves. And you'll see when they arrive that you probably have 1 or 2 large flowers already in bloom, and then you will see 1 or 2 larger buds. And then if you look down, you will also see they might not look like buds yet. I can see that that's a bud, but it's just a sort of a cluster of tightly sort of forming leaves, and in there is a bud. So then they will grow as your sort of older flowers die off. But I'll go through how you deadhead in a moment. So again, loosening up the bottom of the roots and then popping it in at an angle. Okay, so you will see once you've got your 3 plants potted that you will now have 3 gaps, and that's where we need to go in with a really decent amount of compact compost. So we don't want sort of air pockets, So gently sort of push the leaves to the side. Oh. And then get your compost. I'm just going to use my hands. And just pop it in to the gap and push it down. And bring it up level, if not a little bit higher than where the plants are planted already. Okay, I'll try and do this so you can see. I think it is quite obvious though where the gaps are. So you take your handful of compost and press down, obviously being careful of your leaves and any little buds that are forming. And then the last gap here. So we're just really making sure that we're getting rid of any air pockets, making sure the plants are getting new nutrients from a new sort of amount of compost, if they've exhausted everything that was in there before. And then in the middle, you will obviously have a gap, a very small gap. If you can, feed some compost into that gap and push it down. Okay, so now you have your plants planted. You will also now see that you have space for some gorgeous moss. So, if I pop it that way around and you can see. You've got your bun moss, your sphagnum moss and your flat moss. So pop in whatever you like. I think with this planter, for me personally, it's a really good sort of size planter for some really gorgeous bun moss, which is my favourite. And then amongst sort of the gaps, you can add in your sort of more loose forming moss, your sphagnum moss. Allow it to sort of trail off the side of the pot. Now you'll see with my pot, it's quite old. I've used it multiple times for multiple different plants. So it's looking, I mean right now it's got, you know, compost fingerprints all over it. But you'll find if you're ordering a Ranunculus planter and you're getting your new pot, and once the Ranunculus have gone over and you've, you know, maybe put the tuber in the cupboard, and I'll explain that in a second, you know, it's a really lovely pot for lots of other things, and is, yeah, it's just a really good size. But as you'll see, they age really, really beautifully. Okay, so that's all the moss in. I'm just kind of working out what I think is the front. I think that's the front. So if, say, I was having this on a shelf, I would work out where the front is, so that then I can focus the birch twigs that go in next on that sort of front section. So again, just touches of birch, nothing dramatic. And just place them in. Again, it's just a sort of finishing touch. Okay, there we go. Okay, I will, I'll plant up the next one, the kit, and then we'll go through some ranunculus care. So I'll pop that to the side quickly. So this is quite a quick one to pot up. So this is the Simona ribbed pot with the matching gorgeous saucer. So once you have your pot on its saucer, pop in your gravel. And then add in your compost. I'm trying to work out how much, probably, I've gone probably up to there. with compost, but we'll see if it's might be too much. And then after watering your plant, gently take it out of its plastic pot. Tease the roots just gently, just to loosen them slightly, and then in it goes. Okay, no, that's fine. I'll just turn it that way. And now you can add in your compost around the edges. So when I planted this up, when I was sort of testing them out, I did do the Monty trick. I don't know if any of you have seen it, whereby he takes the plant out of the pot and leaves the plant to the side, and then puts the pot, the plastic pot, into the pot, and then fills the compost around the plastic pot, and then takes the plastic pot out, and you are left with a perfect size hole for your plant. I don't know what you mean, that I need to get a life. Gardener's World fans, anyone? No, just me? Okay. So there we go, that's all nicely potted, nice and compact compost, so it's getting some nice new nutrients in case it's exhausted everything that's in its pot before. And now we can add in the moss, just around the edges, being careful not to knock or cover any new buds, because they will be your new flowers. And again, you can take off any leaves that don't look particularly attractive if you want to. Okay. So while I'm adding the birch, sorry, I'll go through some ranunculus care and tips for you. So ranunculus are an indoor and an outdoor plant. You can successfully grow them indoors, which is just brilliant news, in my opinion. But obviously they also do really well outside. So if you have bought this kit, you can keep it indoors or outdoors or both, and enjoy it in both your garden and your homes. In terms of care, they like a decent amount of water, but not as much as maybe you would think. So for example, I've had my planter, which is just here, I've had that on my windowsill for about 2-3 weeks. Now, when I've done research on how to look after them, it says, you know, don't water too often, allow to dry out before watering again. So I've followed all those tips and it has worked, but I must admit this week, I don't know if it's because the weather has improved slightly, one of the ranunculus started to sort of flop. So I felt it where the soil is, and it still felt quite damp. So I thought, well, I'm going to water it because it feels like it's thirsty. So I gave it a water. The next morning it had come straight back up and it was absolutely fine. So I would just go with your instincts and go with what the plant is telling you. So if it's looking a bit droopy, if it's feeling quite sort of soft, give it a drink. If not, and the soil feels damp, leave it alone, because it's absolutely fine. So just go off what it's sort of telling you, and you know, water as and when. In terms of encouraging new growth, new flowers, it's really simple. When your flowers go over, so once they've sort of had their life and they've flopped over or they've gone brown, you simply need to deadhead. So deadheading a ranunculus involves cutting the stem that the flower is on near the base of the plant. So this then encourages the plant to put its energy into you know, blooming more flowers, in a nutshell. So cut it down as far as you can, being really careful not to cut any new buds. It's not always obvious where the new buds are, so just, you know, just take the stem, follow the stem right down to the base, and then cut it there. And what you will then find is that all the buds that are around it will then start to bloom. So for example, on this one, I've got one large flower, I've got, excuse me, 1, 2, 3 sort of medium-sized buds, and then I can see a couple of sort of, yeah, a couple of new buds coming up. So by deadheading, you take that energy into producing more flowers. But all the usual rules apply when keeping something indoors. Don't put it near a radiator, don't put it near fruit, don't be sort of, cleaning your kitchen and spray, surface cleaner near it, because that won't make it happy at all. Water when you think it needs it, in terms of if it's looking droopy or if the soil feels really dry and you think, yeah, it probably does need a nice drink. But other than that, enjoy this drop dead gorgeous plant. You might even find that if it grows, you can take cuttings from it, where you can put those cut flowers in a vase and enjoy them throughout your home. And with regards to once it's all gone, once the season's over and your plant dies, you can cut the green off, take the tuber out of the compost. It won't be that big, it'll be a small tuber, and you can put it somewhere cool and dry, ideally dark. So if it was me, I'd probably dust the compost off, pop it in a brown paper bag, not plastic, a brown paper bag, somewhere, probably pop it in the cupboard and forget about it. And then next spring, early spring, you can replant it again. Or if, probably like me, you'd rather an easier option and take a gamble, I personally would dust it off, pop it in my garden, in the soil, and hope for the best, and the chances are it probably will come back. That's what I do with the muscari. I just take the green stems off and pop them straight in the garden, and they come back. But yeah, I mean, I might be not doing the right thing there. That might be the lazy option, but if you don't have time, it's an option for you. So there you go. I hope you enjoy it. Those are the two Ranunculus kits, the Ranunculus planter and the white Ranunculus kit.